Welcome to Threats Manager Studio Piece by Piece. I'm Simone Curzi, and today I'm going to show you how you started creating a threat modeling diagram with Threats Manager Studio. This tool can be freely downloaded from threatsmanager.com, and when you install it and you start it, you will see a page similar to the current one. So let's start seeing how you can create your own threat model. This experience will be done without considering the possibility to import templates, which would add additional entities, additional stencils that we can use. The intent of this presentation is simply to show you the basic of diagramming. So to do that, let's create first a diagram. To create a diagram, you need to go to the Home ribbon if you're not there yet and click Create Diagram button. Now the Create Diagram button opens the diagramming page. The diagramming page provides to you a set of functionalities in the diagram ribbon, which is associated to the diagram page. The first part is to add basic stencils. So you can add an external interactor. External interactors are components, are objects that are external to your solution and that interact in some way with the solution itself. Typical examples are users and services that would call your system, perhaps an API, or that you would call to perform activities like some on-premises system. You can add new processes. A process is a piece of your solution containing logic. It may contain also optionally some data store. That's feasible, but the main intent is the business logic. Data store instead doesn't contain any logic, contains only data, and it's again a piece of your system. So if you have a data store that is external to your system, like some on-premises database from which you need to retrieve information from, you will use an external interactor instead. Trust boundaries are containers that are used to separate subsystems, parts of your threat model that are different level of trust from another part of your threat model. We will see in a moment example of that. And finally, with this button, you can conveniently create a new threat type from this interface if you haven't already imported the template or if the imported templates do not present that sort of problem, that sort of issue. Then you have some layout buttons. The automatic layout is present only for the expert because it may create some unwanted results, but otherwise with those buttons you can align the different parts of the threat model, so the selected items. Toggle markers, we will see in a moment, allow to hide and unhide markers that are in the diagram. Markers are, for example, used to show you the fact that some stencil has assigned threat events and the status of the mitigations. Then there are buttons to zoom the diagram and a couple of buttons to create a snapshot of the current diagram. This button remove allows to remove the current diagram from the threat model. Removing a diagram from the threat model doesn't remove the entities that are in the diagram. It simply removes the diagram. So this is important to note. Then buttons to copy, cut the selected items in the diagram so that you can paste them in another diagram, for instance. And then those additional buttons are added by an extension, the threat modeling, Microsoft Threat Modeling tool import extension. So if you don't have that extension installed, you will miss those two buttons. They are used to merge duplicates, essentially, that may happen due to how the Microsoft Threat Modeling tool handles the different entities. So how, well, sorry, I was jumping that, but it's an important detail. On the left, you see the stances. So there are four different tabs here. The first tab is for the basic objects, and this doesn't change. You have the list that shows the process, the external interactor, process, data store, transboundary. So the idea is that to create an external interactor, you can click the new external interactor button, or you can drag and drop an external interactor to the page. The result is the same. Then with the second one, item templates, you would, by selecting the category and eventually clicking the refresh button, you get a list of items of a specific type. Now it's empty, but this is by design because I haven't imported any template. So let's look at what happens when I import a template. So the template will be, well, let me download the template from the site. Video, go to templates, Azure Pass Core, download template. Now I should check the SHA to verify its integrity. I'm not good, I'm a bad person. So now I'm going to simply select this one. Please check the hash. So currently this is the right template that I want to import. Here I see the different categories of items. If I uncheck those items and uncheck the skip granular selection, I can go here and I can select one by one all the different items, just to be sure that I'm loading the different elements. But that what I'm doing now, it will be the same to click simply here and having next. So essentially, that said, you can import a template doing click, 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 advance, 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 and finish. So now we have imported, and if I refresh, I see that I have stances here. There is no external interactor in this template, so this is by design. Now, then let's return to the diagram. This is about the diagrams, and those are the existing objects we will see later. With instead the thread types, I can click here and I can see the different types that I have, the different thread types that I have. I can then drag and drop, and we will see how I can do that. So let's return to our diagram and let's create a trust boundary. Now, being the Azure Pass, that could be an Azure Trust boundary. So that will be the user. This could be a administrator, and then we could have from the item templates process I could have a web application here. The user calls the web application, and that could be a call. Of course, we have that we could read information from the web application, we could write or send commands to the web application, and we would have a data store, like for instance an Azure SQL. So the web application would talk with the Azure SQL and would send a message. Now it's important to note a couple of things. How did I write this? How did I create? If you see, I can move, but I can, clicking on the icon, create also a flow. How is that possible? Let me show that. Let me remove those lines and show how this happens. So let's increase the size. Okay, and now if I go to user, you see I can see that the icon changes, the pointer changes. It's an arrow in the border, and then in the middle it becomes a little hand. Now if I click in the middle when it is an hand and I move, I create a line. If I click on the icon when it is an arrow, I can move. This is exactly the idea. So when I click and create the arrow like that, what happens is that the arrow is created. Threads Manager Studio checks if there is a flow already assigned, already existing in this direction from user to web application, and if so, it applies the information related to the existing flow. So this means that from a stencil to another stencil, so it's from a source to a target, you define 0 or 1 flows, not many. You may have a flow in the other direction, that's absolutely possible, but you cannot have a third flow. In fact, you see, it doesn't even stick. So let me close the magnifier now. And what happens now is that if I do the same with Azure SQL, I have the flow represented here. So to essentially have the request. Why I have flow here? Simply because I didn't change the title. So I can now go here and change the title, or I can select the flow and change here the title. Like for example, access DB. Related to flows, there are other characteristics. If I click on a flow, I see that there is a property flow type. Now this tool that you can see here in the right is called item editor, and essentially is how you can access the various information related to the selected entity. So for each object you have some specified information. You have the icon, you have the type of the object, you have the title of the object, the name, which you can edit here. This is an editable control. There is the description that allows you to edit it. You see that this is blue and underlined. Why? Because I can click it and now I can edit. This editor is essentially something that you can place where you want, and you can even change the size. This is very convenient, for example, when you are showing to some user, to some stakeholder, your threat model. So this is a description. And you may decide, for example, to make it 200. Okay, and the other thing is that it also has a orthographic correction. So you can see if you make a mistake and correct. And that's it. The automatic correction is also here implied. When you click again on description, the tool recalls your configuration and maintains it. If you close Threats Manager Studio, this will be lost. So you need again to create the size and the percentage up to your liking. Also, the position of the dialog is remembered. So there are other additional information which may be present or not, depending on the type of the level you are in. The simplified view will not have this information to further simplify the item editor for you. Then there are details related to the flow. What is the source? What is the target? And you see that if you go there, I can get a tooltip with details. Not only that, I can also see fountain diagrams, which allow me to directly jump to the diagram where the information is. And there is the flow type. With this flow type, I can change. Let's say, for example, that this is read-only. And you see that when I do that, this could be something requiring. So you see here, it's read and there is no write. So let me move a little this one. This is also something interesting. So I select again. If I go here in change to write command only, you see that now the letter R is disappeared and the WC is shown. So based on the value of the flow type you put, those letters are hidden. So this allows you to see at a glance what is the situation. Okay, and you have already seen that if I select a flow, I can use those handles to move it and to create the shape I want. Instead, the various stencils cannot be reshaped or resized. They are the size that you see. Okay, so this is about diagramming. There are other aspects which may be interesting. So let's show, for instance, let's see that we need to create a new diagram. This is a second diagram. Okay, so now the existing objects stencil, this object stencil is available. Now, if you go to external interactor, you see that there are two different items available: administrator and user. Let me move with iterated diagrams. I can go directly to diagram 1. Otherwise, also clicking on iterated diagrams allows me to jump to other diagram. Of course, you can use also Ctrl Tab to move between the pages that you have loaded. So let's move again to diagram I wanted to show to diagram 1, and let's go to the page of the existing objects. If you select external interactor, this is empty. If I go to our process, this is empty. Data store empty, and transboundary empty. But I have items here of those types: 2 external interactor, one process, 1 data store, and a transboundary. Why they are not showing here? Because all those items are already in the page. You cannot create a second copy. So this stencil is empty. Now, if I return Ctrl Tab to the previous one, I see that instead external interactor is as the instance, process, data store, and transboundary as this is the instance existing. So what happens is that now in this diagram you can create the various items. So I can get the user, for instance, and now it's not available anymore, so it disappeared. And I can get the web application. And if I drag and drop the web application, the tool knows that the web application is something that you have already created in the previous diagram. So now it understands that the web application is under a thrust boundary, is included in thrust boundary. Proof is that you can move the thrust boundary itself. And you can essentially, it creates the thrust boundary itself. Now it's interesting to note that if I move this thrust boundary over the user appears under the thrust boundary. In other words, the user is not part of the thrust boundary. To make the user part of the thrust boundary, I need actually to drag, to move on the thrust boundary. So you see that when I move the user over the thrust boundary, it becomes, the thrust boundary, the border becomes red, full red, so not dashed. So if I drop, now it will become part of the thrust boundary. I can do that. Now it's part. In fact, if I move, it moves with the thrust boundary. Let's make it out as it was previously. Now, guess what happens if I create a flow from the thrust boundary to the web application? That it's recognized, of course, and it is created. Now, what happens if I get the flow back? It is created, but it is the previous flow. So now, typically, you don't need to have a return flow. The tool allows to essentially have the complete round trip with a single flow. So that will not be necessary. But in some cases, let's imagine that the user really is not a user, is an external. Oops, I click tab, external service. Being an external service, now this could be a webhook. So we have a call from the external service, and we have a webhook call. Now if I return to the previous diagram, we are in diagram 2, and I return to diagram 1, I see that now the external service, the user has been renamed external service, and that the return is webhook call. Everything else is remained correct. This could be my processor, for instance, and if I return to diagram 2, this is processor. So they are the same object, really, and we can use that. Now, we have explained the different tabs. We remain to discuss the last one, thread types. So let's imagine that we needed to associate one of those threads to the diagram. A malicious actor may cause full-scale outage. No, we want, for example, to have something, a threat associated related to authentication. Credentials for the resource may be stolen and used to access it. Okay, that seems interesting because the external service calls the processor. So the credential essentially could be stolen. Now, where could that be? Could be in the external service, for instance. That could have the credentials for the processor. Or we could put in a processor. It depends on where you want. Let's, considering that who would those credentials is the external service, we could drag and drop to the external service. Now, it has created a little circle with boxes, tiny boxes. Let's show. You see those tiny boxes, and this is what you see. And if I click here, this is the threat event that I've just created from that threat type. So here you have, in the list, you have the different threat types. In fact, this is the threat types. What I've just created here instead is a threat. It's a threat event because it is associated to the external service. Okay, so it's red. It's red at this icon. It's red at this icon. Why? Because it has no mitigations. Red means no mitigations. So I can go here. So let me unselect. If I click on the marker, now the external service has been selected here, and then I can click on credentials for the resource, or I can see the same threat event here, and I could also double click here. So what happens if I click here? Now the item editor shows the threat event. So now what I can do is to add mitigations. And here you see various mitigations. Those are the standard mitigations. Let's select one. It's credentials may be stolen, use managed identities, could be something else, I don't know. System side, separate key vaults, Azure AD service accounts. Why not? That could be something that we can put. Managed identities, we are outside of Azure, so it may be a little more complicated, and that is proposed. So after we have the status, the strength done, okay. And now you see this is not red anymore. It's orange. Why it's orange? Because if I double click here, I open another item editor for this one, and the strength is average. But what if the strength is maximum? When the strength is maximum, it becomes green, because maximum means that it addresses the threat. Essentially, it's able to address the threat. There is a calculation done to decide if I have enough mitigations. And if I have enough mitigations, based on that calculation, that will become green. If I have some mitigations, but those mitigations are not enough based on that calculation, then it will be orange. If I have no mitigations, that will be red. The same goes here. If I have multiple threats, like for example, secrets may be disclosed due to weak protection, now I have orange because I have a situation here when one is green and the other is red, no mitigations. So what should I do? I should take another mitigation. It's maximum. So if I put existing, for instance, that could be everything, even proposed. Then it's green again, because both are green. So this is the idea. It's simply an easy placeholder, an easy tag for you to understand if the mitigations identified may be considered enough, or if you would perhaps need to get a look and to check if you can do something better. That's the only intent. It's not prescriptive in any case. So if you don't like this, you can simply click toggle markers and it will disappear. So it is recommended to click toggle markers to ensure that you are not getting those elements, those indicators when you are talking with some business stakeholder, because those colors may be not useful to have a meaningful conversation. That said, what happens, let's return to the first diagram. What happens if we decide that, for instance, this administrator is not there? We do not want to consider that administrator. We may decide that it is wrong in this diagram and then simply clicking the del button, it will be removed. But that removal will not remove the diagram, the entity from the threat model. In fact, if I click here and I press the del button, it is removed. But now if I go to external interactor and refresh, the administrator, you see, is here because it has not been removed from the threat model. What do I need to do to remove the administrator from the threat model? Context menu. Every item, even the desktop, has context menus. The context menu that you can see here may change depending on what you have installed on the extensions. So you will see potentially different items. So what should you do? You should remove from model. So if you click remove from model, remove from diagram will do the same of your del button. Instead, remove from model asks you, are you sure you want to remove from the model? Yes. And now if I click here, there is no administrator anymore. Other interesting things, you may want to have more space. So how to have more space? By simply clicking those bars, they are collapsible. So you can again extend by clicking on the bars. So this allows to get more space. Of course, also with the ribbon, double click on the ribbon and it closes. So this could be a good way to get more space. And then if you go to the diagram, you can zoom in or fit, because zoom in, and you can get something that will be more easily seen by your stakeholders when you are going to show the threat model. Okay, other interesting things here. 100%. Okay, so another interesting thing is that you may want to change those icons. There are a couple of ways actually. You can for the entities, that doesn't work for trust boundary, what I'm going to see, or for flows, they have no icon, but the various entities, processor, data stores, and so on and so forth, external interactors, you may have a context menu, change entity icon, and then double click, and then you can go to pictures and search for an icon. Those are big icons, but I can search something like this one. Okay, they are resized, and that's. You can also click here, double click on this icon, and then again double click, and you can go here, Azure icons, and let's go to analytics, to compute, for instance. No, let's get general service icons, and now they are SVG, so you can use PNG files, JPEG, or SVG, and that you can get everything like I don't know, what's new. That's the what's new service. Yes, so you can change the icon based on this. Perfect. So that's this idea. Other things that you may use are yes. Now this processor or the storage, for instance. What if you see that this, by the way, not an Azure SQL? You understand that it is something different. Now you can change the template. This uses a template Azure SQL. You want to change the template, so you can go here, change template, and this allows you to select another data store template. Could be an Azure Storage, could be a Cosmos DB. So they have changed their definition to Cosmos DB. Click and change. When you change the Cosmos DB, what is changed is the icon and the template and all the different properties. The description, as you see, has not changed. So you may want to change this description by hand, because that could be something you have put and yourself, and it will not be proper to change the description. So that's it for the diagramming. I think more or less I've shown everything that will be interesting to jumpstart. So if you liked this video, please like it and subscribe to the channel. Thank you, and I hope to see I hope you to get a look at the new videos that will be published on Threats Manager Studio. Have a great day.